Here we have Vivek Ramaswamy talking about his views on abortion. He says he's pro-life, but more so, anybody that claims to be pro-life or pro-birth, they don't care if the mother dies. All they want is babies to be born.
About a personal experience here in Iowa. You spoke about your wife Apoorva's miscarriage. Does that experience shape how you view abortion policy and whether the law should allow for some abortions when pregnancies aren't viable, like in the case of Kate Cox?
Honestly, though, if you're only in support of something because it personally affects you, you're kind of a bad person. It's like right-wingers are in support of like cannabis or gay rights and stuff because they have a family member that needs to use cannabis for medical reasons, or a family member that comes out as being gay or trans or something, then they support that. It's like, shouldn't you support this because it's right and not just because it personally affects you?
So I think that personal experience did shape, I think, my views, and I would say even mine and Apoorva's views, our family's views on abortion. I've been pro-life for a long time. Logic leads me to many of my positions. If brainwaves end, and that's when life ends, I think you can't say that life begins any later than when brainwaves begin. That's 5 or 6 weeks after conception. But here's my view on the abortion issue. I think that the pro-life movement, and I consider myself part of that, hasn't done enough to walk the walk in actually standing for life and pro-life principles. I want to talk about more expansive policies of ease of access to adoption, to child.
Does that mean allowing more people of the LGBTQ community to adopt kids? Because so far that's been denied.
Childcare. And I, for one, I think I'm alone in the GOP on this, but I hope more embrace it. As a man, I will say this. We need to codify sexual responsibility into the law to say that if a woman brings a child to term, she should, at her option, be able to make the man the principal caretaker financially responsible for raising that child if it's confirmed by a genetic paternity test.
Okay, but what's your view on if a woman doesn't want to have a child and she decides to have an abortion? Are you okay with that? Or are you wanting to require women to go through full term?
I think that's how we're able to unite the country at least as best we can on this issue. To say it's not about men's rights or women's rights, it's about human rights. In the case of a pregnant woman who
Okay, if it's about human rights, then it is about the right of the woman to be able to decide if she wants to have a baby or not, especially if it's a non-viable fetus. That means she gets to decide if she wants to keep a non-viable fetus inside her.
was assaulted when the unborn child died, I haven't met one person, left or right, who says that that criminal doesn't deserve liability for that death. That says we share the.
Well, yeah, many people won't say that rapists shouldn't be liable for raping a person, which is why they're usually with rape. But the thing is, should a woman be punished for not wanting to have the fetus growing inside her that was conceived through rape?
These pro-life instincts in common, and I want us to do better as Republicans to actually stand for those life principles than we have done to date.
So in the case of Kate Cox, where that pregnancy was not viable and she had to go through the courts, is it a compassionate message for the GOP to say that she shouldn't? Would you have allowed her to have that abortion?
Well, I think, Bran, with due respect, I think that you are overlaying a lot of assumptions to say that's not a viable pregnancy. I don't think that that's a correct characterization. The fact.
That's what the doctors were saying, that it was non-viable. So he's trying to say he knows more than what she she and her doctor came to the conclusion of via testing and all that. So this dude is trash.
Facts are still coming out, and I'm not firsthand in the room with her and her doctor. But I don't think that it is an accepted fact at all that that was not a child who was going to be born. That child absolutely could have been alive if that pregnancy was taken to term. And so
No, it would not been possible for a non-viable fetus to come to term no matter how long it was inside her because it was a non-viable fetus. This dude is a moron. He claims to care about human lives and human rights, yet doesn't care that this woman had a non-viable fetus inside her.
I think that a lot of the overlay and the narrative around this has confounded the reality.
Testified
but
that
what
it
I
was not a
stand by,
viable
not a viable pregnancy is viable until what age? After birth. I think.
No, a non-viable pregnancy means that the fetus is either dead inside her or not going to survive long to be birthed. It's this dude is a moron. He pretends to be about the rights of people, but doesn't care that the doctor has concluded that this woman has a non-viable fetus and needs a medical abortion.
I think these are separate debates and nuances that we deserve to have rather than just telling the public that that baby would have never made it to term, which, on my understanding of the facts, is actually false. And so we need to get to actual detail rather than just using vague terms like viable when that refers to.
Vague terms like viable, it's what doctors use when talking about a fetus that is able to survive or is alive or not inside the woman. He obviously doesn't care about the rights of the woman.
Viable even after birth. What I think we need is sensible policies in this country that implement pro-life views. And the pro-life views that I support are no federal funding for Planned Parenthood. Our taxpayers dollars shouldn't be going to fund Planned Parenthood.
Why shouldn't women get good medical care from Planned Parenthood? Because Planned Parenthood just doesn't do abortions, do like mammograms and other things that women need in order to help stay healthy. So this dude pretends to be about, uh, women's rights and stuff, but he's not. He's all about preventing women from being able to have adequate medical care.
I think we need to stand for life in the form of access to adoption, access to child care. I think we can have a legitimate bipartisan discussion about that.
Okay, still, are you in favor of uh, trans people, gay people, lesbians and stuff being able to adopt? Because if not, you truly don't care about helping children. And why is that like the main thing? I mean, it should be women having the right to determine if they want a baby or not, not if we have good enough adoption systems for these people.
And I favor a policy that says this should not be borne exclusively by women. It's wrong. I think men should share in this responsibility equally, or at least as equally as we can. I think the woman, if it's confirmed by a genetic paternity test, should legally be able to make the man the sole responsible party for raising that child, which will force men to take responsibility for their sexual decisions on the front end, not.
Okay, but people shouldn't be punished for having sex. That's the thing. I mean, you should be punished if you're raping a person, but if two adults decide to have sex, they shouldn't be punished just because a fetus started forming.
Just putting this on women. And I think that's the way we need to not only frame, but actually approach this issue, to say this issue doesn't have to divide us to a breaking point. We're in this together, that we understand that unborn life is life, we respect it. I believe most people actually share those instincts in common if we don't make this a men versus women's issue.
If you care about life, then you care about the life of the living person who should be able to dictate if they're going to carry a fetus inside them. You can't force a person to share organs with another person, but somehow it's supposed to be okay for a woman to share their body with a fetus that they don't want.
And I, for my part, not just as a Republican, but as a man, am willing to go to the fullest extent possible to stand for those pro-life principles. More access to crisis pregnancy care and otherwise that doesn't exist in the country. Let's have that conversation, and I think that's far more productive than trying to have some sort of split the difference compromise about which week is